And welcome to the Action Network's Fantasy Flex Waiver Wire podcast presented by Prize Picks. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on, man?
What's up? Had a pretty good week 7. I have like 150 things I'm rooting for. I came up on top, but more importantly, I went 3-0 unconvinced me. And that is the most important thing. So be sure to tune in every Sunday morning to watch me and Chris unconvince me. But yeah, how was your week 7?
Was not kind of me bankroll wise in betting. I went
no.
over on spreads and totals for the first time I don't know if I ever remember going over. I had like 4 or 5 that I bet, and if I hadn't bet props, I would have gone over on the week. I mean, it started off well on Thursday night, but Sunday was not good for me. So it's on to the week 7 showdown slate, and then it's on to waivers. We'll talk about the top priority ads, but let's start with this showdown slate for the Saints and the Seattle Seahawks. Alvin Kamara, obviously the top guy here. Is that the guy that's just kind of like the lock for the captain spot for you?
Yeah, I think he's a no-brainer. But if you want to play this showdown slate, you kind of have to be unique. So I'm okay fading Kamara. I think he's going to be very highly rostered in the captain slot. So I think mixing it up with either like a Marquez Callaway or DK Metcalf in the captain slot would be good leverage. There could be some rain tonight, but I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as the 49ers game last night. So I think guys like Callaway and Metcalf will probably be under rostered. So I think I'll probably pivot to them in some spots. Whereas, Kamara, you can't go wrong with him, but I just think everyone's going to have him. So just to be a little bit contrarian, I think Callaway and Metcalf for me.
Yeah, I think it's always valuable to do that. I think my guy, if I'm going contrarian, would be Tyler Lockett. The Saints like to play a lot of man coverage, and they'll probably be able to shut down Metcalf. I think we talked about this last week, but the Saints have been really strong against those alpha number 1 receivers. Terry McLaurin was held in check. Davante Adams didn't really have much production against them. So I think that Lockett is a guy who he might not get like the 60-yard touchdown in this game, but he has been the Seattle's go-to guy against man coverage. And I think he could have one of those like 9-10 catch games, especially if they get behind, maybe 9 or 10 catches for like 90, 100 yards or something like that. So Tyler Lockett's for me. What about cheat codes? Anybody kind of in that lower pricing tier? There's a bunch of options. As we record this, we don't yet have word on who the Saints have elevated, right? Like, because I know Tre'Quan Smith is eligible to come off, and he did practice, but we don't have official word on that, right?
Yeah, we don't have official word yet. I guess he is expected to play tonight, but we just don't know how much. So that's something we'll have a better handle on up until kickoff. But I think that either way, Kenny Stills is probably a good play. He ran around 82% of dropbacks last week. So I think even if Tre'Quan Smith plays, he should see upwards of like 70% routes run. We have to remember that Deontay Harris is absolutely out tonight. So there is, an opening for these number 2, number 3 wide receiver for the Saints to go off tonight. And I do like Jameis because, Taysom Hill's going to be out. So, we won't get those annoying Taysom Hill packages, especially around the goal line where, he sort of eats into the touchdown share of Jameis and these pass catchers. So I think I am going to be targeting either like a Tre'Quan Smith or Kenny Stills as a cheat code tonight. And then on the Seattle side, Freddie Swain at 2K is pretty valuable for a number 3 wide receiver that's on the field close to 70% of the time. So he's another guy I think that could be a cheat code on the Seattle side, where I agree that Tyler Lockett probably is the best, projection versus cost value for the Seattle wide receivers. But Freddie Swain, for a dart throw, you can't go wrong with him at 2K. I do like him as a semi cheat code for tonight.
Yeah, and he also returns kicks, and they like to get him involved in the run game. So, the only thing with him is probably not going to get one of those signature deep touchdowns against the 2 deep man shell. But he's definitely going to be involved here. Kenny Stills is a guy that's kind of why I would love to know how much Tre'Quan is playing or not, because I do agree. I think Stills is a guy that's going to play close to full snaps. But if Smith is back, then it becomes a little dicier, because there's still essentially you're really talking about one spot. They could go heavier with 2 tight ends in this game a ton. But a guy I'm really looking at is Ty Montgomery, because he's potentially in the top 3 at running back and receiver. I mean, he could play slot receiver, and he may be the backup running back in this game because there's no Dwayne Washington. So, Ty Montgomery may slot in. Divine Zigbo is also there, but hasn't played much. So Montgomery is a guy that, he every once in a while, he has these big games. Sometimes he goes without a touch, but he's a guy that can get touches in the run and the pass game. So I like Ty Montgomery as kind of a sleeper here.
Yeah. And so with Taysom Hill out, like, would he be a guy that might see additional snaps as like a Swiss Army knife, or like could Troutman or Juwan Johnson see more snaps? Like, how are you handling Taysom Hill being out?
I mean,
if at all.
Yeah, I bumped up Montgomery's rushes a tiny bit. He hasn't gotten too many carries this year, but the combination of him likely playing, it's kind of like Demetric Felton. Like, he could have a game like that, except unlike Felton, who I think we kind of landed on might want to fade because he was so expensive, Montgomery's like under 1K. So it's a totally different, if he gets the same amount of touches Felton got, like, a couple of carries, a couple of catches, he would hit value pretty much. So
yeah, especially on this slate, because I don't expect too many points. So I think, the defenses are in play. You made a good point with Freddie Swaim. If he returns a punt touchdown and you have him and the Seattle defense, you get that counted double. So I think that's an interesting stack. Although we can never really count on punt return touchdowns, but a slate like this, just like one single touchdown like that can break the slate. So I might be playing defenses a little bit more in this showdown slate than others.
Speaking of slate breakers, who we had score a touchdown on the last primetime game? Well, the Thursday night primetime game. I shouldn't say the last one, but Johnny Stanton, the fullback, got one for Cleveland. So with that in mind, Alex Arma, the Saints fullback, ran a route on a season high 21% of dropbacks in the week before the bye. If they get around the goal line without Taysom Hill, that's just one more opportunity to go play action and potentially hit Arma for an easy touchdown uncovered. So he's another guy to maybe round out your lineups if you're looking for somebody that should be pretty well rostered. All right, that's going to do it for our Monday Night Football showdown breakdown. Now let's get into our waivers for week 8. All right, and joining us for our week 8 waivers is Samantha Previte. Samantha, glad to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And right before we get into waivers, we should mention that just happened as we're recording this, but Davante Adams looks like he's gone on the COVID-19 into COVID-19 protocols. So we don't know for sure. Do we know for sure if he's vaccinated, Samantha? Because if he is, then he would be eligible to come back. If he's not, he would be pushing it.
That I don't know, though it's a very tight turnaround with it being a Thursday game. So they need 2 tests with 24 hours in between with negatives. So I think at least the reporter that originally broke the news, it seems like they were not optimistic for him to play this Thursday.
All right. So, oh my goodness. And the line for Packers Cardinals already went from 3.5 to 5.5 for the Cardinals. So yeah, it looks like pretty much like Adams going to be out because a 2-point move, that's only guys like Davante Adams, like if you're talking about a non-quarterback, is going to move a line like that.
Yeah.
So
the Cardinals are so lucky.
They're also good, but yes, very lucky and good. It's better
lucky
to be
and
both.
Good.
It's better to be both. But real quick, since we usually start with quarterbacks, but Sean, I'll start with you on this. Adams out. Was going to mention Alan Lazard anyway when we got to wide receivers. 6 targets, 5 catches, 60 yards and a touch last week against Washington. 3 catches, 27 and a touch on 5 targets in week 6. Alan Lazard was essentially like running routes with the invisibility cloak on for like the first month of the season. Like, you ever play Halo? You just get that invisibility cloak. You're just like mashing. No one could see you. Like, that was Alan Lazard, except he wasn't mashing. He was just it was just all Davante Adams. But do we think now with Adams potentially out, and I guess MVS is still out, Lazard, is he their number 1 receiver?
Yes, he is, but I think that it's going to spread around the target. So I think guys like Randall Cobb might be playable. Even Amari Rodgers should see some playing time here. And Robert Tonyan, his touchdown upside goes way up. He finally had a good week last week. He had 4 catches, 63 yards, and a touchdown. So I think Tonyan could be in the tight end 1 discussion this week with Adams out. But yeah, I'll need to update all these projections. Haven't done that yet, but certainly Aaron Rodgers gets a slight downgrade when his favorite receiver is out. So it'd be interesting to see where I end up ranking Aaron Rodgers based on this.
All right, Samantha, since Sean did not answer my question at all.
Oh,
what do you think of Alan Lazard? Or does he just jump up to like number 1 waiver priority at wide receiver? I mean, there wasn't much there anyway. I mean, you're talking about like Russell Gage, maybe Kalif Raymond. How's Lazard looking for you now with this news?
Sean, perfect politician like imitation here.
Yeah, let me update my projections real quick and then I'll answer.
Classic Sean.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that was on my waiver column already that I just filed, has at least 5 targets and a touchdown in consecutive games. So I was thinking that he was already maybe like flex worthy in, for people that may have injury ravaged teams. But yeah, like you said, it's going to be a lean week for waivers. I had Gage and Kalif Raymond and even guys like KJ Osborne and Kendrick Bourne on there. So yeah, I think it looks like Adams is going to miss a game. So I would definitely put Lazard as the top claim and would assume he is the wide receiver 1, though I doubt he's going to get the target share that say Davante Adams would get.
Yeah, I think we have to pick up Lazard now. We don't know much about what's going on, but it's Lazard, I think, and then Cobb will be a guy that will see targets. But Sean, you mentioned Aaron Rodgers, slight downgrade. I'm guessing you were being a little sarcastic. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers startable without Davante?
Yeah, he's going to be right on that cusp. I just updated projections. So I'll So forgive me on my previous answer. I have Aaron Rodgers as QB 13 and Alan Lazard as wide receiver 30 right now. These are tentative, obviously, but to make up for my previous answer, yes, Alan Lazard is startable. He's going to be a low to mid-range wide receiver 3.
Nice. There you go. There you have it, people. All right, let's go through our normal rhythm here. Let's start with quarterbacks. Not too much in terms of bye weeks. Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr. The only 2 that are on bye. So, Sean, I'll go right back to you. Daniel Jones, Trevor Lawrence. Are we kind of hoping for a Deshaun Watson trade? Do we want to stash him? Who's the top priority for you at QB this week?
The Deshaun Watson situation. Who the hell knows? I stash him in our league, but I'm not counting him playing at all this year. So it's Daniel Jones for me. And, it's crazy. He had a good game last week and he had like nobody available. Even Sterling Shepard was ruled out. So if he just gets back 1 or 2 of these guys, like give me a Kenny Golladay, a Sterling Shepard, or Kadarius Toney, and he'll be a low end quarterback 1 for me this week. They play the Chiefs. We already know how bad the Chiefs defense is. I think this is gonna be a high scoring game. So I think Daniel Jones could be a low end QB1 this week and my top streamer ad for week 8.
Samantha, should we drop Patrick Mahomes and pick up Daniel Jones and just start him in the Chiefs Giants game?
Absolutely. Heard it here first. All about the matchup. Patrick Mahomes is washed. No, I mean, I do think that Daniel Jones has the best matchup of any of like the waiver wire caliber guys. So he's definitely worthy of streaming conversation. I mean, there's another number of other guys that I would also consider. Tyrod Taylor is on track to return. So he's a guy that could maybe be interesting. He's only played really 1 full game, but he's definitely gonna be the starter over Davis Mills. And then Tua Tagovailoa definitely played pretty well last game. It's been 2 solid fantasy performances together. So, like those would be the guys that I would be choosing from if I needed a streamer.
How about Jameis Winston? Revenge game against the Buccaneers. Thoughts?
Jameis
Nope.
Winston against Tom Brady. Nope.
Yeah, well, he's not facing Tom Brady. He's facing the Buccaneers defense.
I
thought we liked
he's better than Justin Fields, but barely.
Well, I think everybody's better than Justin Fields right now. So I'm just putting out that out there that Jameis Winston could be a streaming option as well this week. That's all.
Fair. What do you think, Samantha?
I mean, sure, maybe in a deeper league. Taylor Heineke might also be out there. I know he had like 2 pretty bad games, and then I was like, oh yeah, go sit Heineke, and then he has good games. So, I mean, the Broncos defense is sort of exploitable at this point. So he's another guy that I would also consider. I guess Jameis, yeah, in deeper leagues too.
Yeah, I mean, Jameis.
If Daniel Jones isn't available.
Yeah, Jameis is like he's still a low end QB too, because I
the
mean,
volume just necessarily
the volume, and they're gonna be familiar with him, and like that, it just doesn't like you know how many times they probably picked this dude off in practice, like yeah, I mean, granted, their whole secondary is pretty much out. They even lost another corner last week, but we said that about Justin Fields. So yeah, I'm off Jameis, but like I do want to get like definitive opinions on. If Deshaun Watson is on waivers, is there any chance that if he gets traded, he suits up for his new team, or do we think he's just 100% landing on the commissioner's exempt list?
I think he's landing on the exempt list, but I'm not planning for him to play this year. I didn't pick him up. I mean, I was kind of late to the news, so I didn't really have like the option to pick him up at a lot of places. But like, I mean, unless you're in like a really deep league, I don't know. I'm not like dropping someone to pick him up necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the bench space and you're hurting at quarterback, certainly add him. But yeah, who knows if he's going to play this year? I mean, I feel like we've been heard he was trade was imminent with him for about 2 months now. So I'll believe it when I see it. But you know, I think he's worthy of a stash. We're late enough in the season where you know, it can't hurt to stash him, but I wouldn't, you know, bet on him playing this year. Let's just put it that way.
All right, let's go to running back. Well, so there's a couple of things interesting that happened in week 7, but I don't want to call it big news because it's not big news. It's mediocre news. But Miles Sanders hurt his ankle. I mean, it's great for my Miles Sanders season long under 7.5 touchdowns. I think he still doesn't have one. Kenny Gainwell, though, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago. We liked picking him up, and he rewarded us by doing absolutely nothing to increase his value. So it's probably just rotting away on somebody's bench. But ankle injuries are tough. Sanders probably going to miss some time. Kenny Gainwell, 35 snaps, 24 routes run against the Raiders. And then Boston Scott, 23 snaps and 12 routes run. So kind of like a 60-40, you know, split, maybe 70-30 split for Gainwell. Normal running back 1, running back 2 split. Samantha, is Gainwell the top priority or any of these Philly backs, or are we going with like, you know, somebody from New England or Perine or somebody like that? Or where are you on this Philly backfield?
I would probably say Gainwell is going to be my top running back ad for the week. Most running back touches of the trio. I like his involvement with the passing game and everything like that. And totally on the same page that I was hyping him up a couple weeks ago. And of course he does absolutely nothing, but he's on a couple of my benches. So I think good news if you already have him, but he's 21% rostered. And yeah, like you said, with Miles Sanders, it seems that he's escaped a major injury, but it's not like he's looked like fantastic all season. So I think this could definitely be an opportunity for Gainwell to, you know, take over a lot of the workload. Scott would be more of like a deeper league ad for me.
Sean, any thoughts on the Eagles backfield? I know we talked about Gainwell a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I would add Gainwell. It would not surprise me if Miles Sanders ends up suiting up this week. I guess it was just a low ankle sprain. So as Samantha said, I think he avoided a major injury. But you know, there's not much to go off this week. You know, Perine probably not an ad for me unless Joe Mixon got hurt and I'm unaware of it. So at least Gainwell, he has the potential of being an RB2 this week. I mean, they face the Lions. So if Miles Sanders is out, you know, Gainwell's going to be an RB2 with Boston Scott mixing in. So it's still early in the week, but I think Gainwell's the top ad.
Samantha, I made the silly decision of betting on the Jets and Patriots under. One convinced me. So there's no amount of wordplay that could get me out of that because the Patriots outscored them, or outscored the total all by themselves by double digits. So in the process, we saw Brandon Bolden go for 8 touches, 79 yards and a touchdown. And then JJ Taylor, 10 touches, 26 yards, but 2 touchdowns. Bolden, 28% of snaps. Taylor, 26% of snaps. Are these guys that you're looking to add at all? Or do you think that's just a 1 week anomaly in a crazy game script blowout of the Jets.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the game script. I don't think they're going to be scoring 50 points a lot of times this year. But that said, I do think Bolden has a lot of appeal in PPR formats. He didn't have one rushing yard all game, but certainly is being deployed in that James White role. So I think he's definitely worth a look. Taylor, I'm a little less interested in just because I feel like Damien Harris is the guy, the main rusher, and he just probably saw a significant uptick because of, like I said, them leading for the whole game and by a lot. So I would say Bolden is the preferred ad of the two.
Sean?
Yeah, I think this is just the blowout. I think all 3 running backs finished in the top 10 this week, which is crazy. But, they might mix and match with Rhamondre Stevenson. Maybe, he was inactive this week, potentially because he missed that pass block last week. So now he's in Bill Belichick's doghouse. It might be a matter of time until JJ Taylor's back in his doghouse. So I think, for now, I think Brandon Bolden is sort of the James White replacement. So I do think he's worth a stash, but in the end, this is going to be a nightmare situation to project each week. I think the only safe bet here is to play Damien Harris whenever the Patriots are favored. I think that's the only takeaway from this is just, we know when the Patriots are favored, that's going to be a Damien Harris game. And he's been money this year whenever they've had a positive game script. So I think that's the only takeaway I'm taking from this.
Yeah, I think Bolden should be stashed and rostered because he ran 16 routes to Harris's 12. We know Harris really doesn't go above that like 25% routes per dropback in a game. So that is going to go to Bolden. And I'm looking at the PFF grades for this week. Brandon Bolden led all running backs in receiving grade. So he really is kind of taking over that James White role. And remember, there was nothing special about White athletically, but what did White have? He was in that system and he just knew what to do, where to be, how to block. Brandon Bolden's been in that system just as long. It's just that he was playing behind White. He would play special teams and not really, get a touch in the run game because they also had Burkhead. So with all those guys gone, the Patriots have always kind of been a backfield where more than one back can eat. So yeah, I think Bolden is a guy that we should be, he should not be on any waiver wires anymore. All right. And Stevenson, I mean, if he's going to get dropped for a pass block, then he's the guy that, if he's going to get scratched for a pass block mistake, that doesn't bode well. Like he'll probably have one of those Taylor games at some point too, where he gets 2 touchdowns. But I mean, if we don't even know if he's going to be active till Sunday morning, what's the point of wasting a roster spot on him? So yeah, I think it's right. Bolden all the way.
I think Stevenson would be stashed just in case Damien Harris were to miss time. I think he'd probably become the lead back, but we don't know. I mean, JJ Taylor was held out 2 straight weeks because he fumbled in week 4, I think it was. So that's just the nature of a Bill Belichick coached offense. It's kind of a revolving door, but we do know that Damien Harris and Brandon Bolden are probably the top 2 guys right now.
It is the shortest week for these guys. One little mistake and they are off, back in the doghouse, benched, whatever. So yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah, I think you take a dumpster, you light a fire, you throw Trey Sermon in it, and you throw Rhamondre Stevenson.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Along with any of your fantasy teams that had those guys, and you just call it a day. That's where I'm at with some of these rookies. I mean, luckily, like Zach Moss made it out of that week 1 scratch doghouse, but it's not been a good year for these doghouse guys. As it never is. It never is. But Samaje Perine. So Sean, I thought something interesting not happened, but sports books I thought were way low on Joe Mixon props coming into week 7. I think his rushing carries prop was like 15.5. His yardage was 58.5, and he landed on 59, which is, good job. But that was kind of interesting to me because we had talked about this, that he was a guy that he would usually see like 80% of the backfield work and kind of dominate touches. Well, Mixon played 54% of the snaps against the Ravens. He did not get injured. And, yes, it was a blowout at the end, but Perine was involved all the way along, had 48% of the snaps, and he had 12 touches for 75 total yards and a touchdown. So essentially a 50-50 split with similar numbers for both backs. But you said he's still not really a guy that you're looking at.
No, and to be honest, I was watching this game very closely because I had the Bengals plus 6.5. And and the Joe Mixon over 15.5 rush attempts. And, you know, the Bengals blew him out so much that Joe Mixon just didn't come back in when there were 6 minutes left in the game. And they were obviously going to be very run heavy, up by almost 30 points. They just let Samaje Perine run wild. So I think that's kind of feeding into this a bit, is Perine got a lot of usage after the blowout. So that's why I'm still saying, you know, I consider Samaje Perine to be a high upside backup, but this is still Joe Mixon's backfield. And I think this is just the Bengals blew him out, which luckily for my Bengals plus 6.5 bet was good, but it definitely hurt my Mixon prop.
He had 7 carries for 0 yards after on those last 2 drives. So he got all the yardage before the blowout, but then he got like half the touches after. But I mean, that's still, I still think that's a little, maybe it's more concerning for Mixon because he just used to be this guy that you could count on for like 90%. But I'm still adding Perine, like he's not as high priority as Bolden for me. But I don't know, Samantha, what do you think? I mean, it's at least something to watch with how injury prone Mixon has been.
Yeah, I would say he's kind of medium priority below Bolden and below guys like Kenny Gainwell. I mean, I think it's maybe going to be a situation kind of similar to the way like the Sanders and Gainwell backfield was before the Sanders injury, like that Mixon's going to get more of the carries for sure, but I think Perine's going to be mixed in. And yeah, I think I'm thinking of him as this high value insurance policy for Mixon. So I think he's worth adding if you have space for sure, and could have a role regardless, but he's not someone that I'm like going, 30% of my fab on.
All right, wide receiver, Kalif Raymond, 115 yards, 6 catches on 8 targets. Sean, I think we mentioned him at some point last week. Is this a guy that is startable at this point? I mean, he's been a full-time guy now. The Lions are going to be behind in most games. Or do you think this is kind of like a 1-week blip?
Yes and no. I mean, I ended up ranking him like wide receiver 45 yesterday, which was surprising, but the Lions are always going to be in negative game scripts. So I think, Raymond does have that upside. I don't know what happened with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but yesterday Raymond was their wide receiver 1. So I think he's definitely worth an add. They're going to see negative game scripts all season long. He has big play potential. So yeah, I think he's definitely worth bench add.
Yeah, so I think what St. Brown, this was something I talked about in my matchups column for this week, was that for some reason it had been Raymond mostly when they go against like zone heavy coverages. It's been Raymond. Man coverage, that's when they look to St. Brown. And the Rams, they're a very zone heavy team. They're kind of like that Eagles, the Brandons. They just play a lot of like quarters coverage and stuff like that. So I don't think Raymond will have a 115-yard every game, but that's, the Rams are one of the zone heaviest teams in the league. So it kind of pointed to, being like a down game for St. Brown. But Samantha, any of these other guys, we talked about Lazard, we talked about Raymond. I mean, there's Russell Gage. He had 6 targets, 4 catches, 67 and a touch. Byron Pringle randomly has been productive for the Chiefs. He had 5 catches last week. Anyone else besides Raymond and Lazard that you're looking at to add this week?
Yeah, Gage could definitely be interesting because similar situation with the Lions. I think they'll be in a lot of like pass heavy, some negative game scripts that will benefit, Ridley, Pitts, and Gage. I know he is definitely the 3rd or 4th option if you consider Cordero Patterson a receiver, basically. But I think having exposure to offenses like that is not the worst. And we've seen the Falcons improve certainly from like over the past 2 games that they've played. Michael Gallup is an interesting name to keep an eye on. He's 40% rostered and has been on injured reserve since suffering a calf strain in week 1. Mike McCarthy said that he is hopeful that he can start practicing this week. I know he's also been talked about in like trade rumors and stuff as well, and he is deep on that depth chart in terms of priority. But that said, it's a high powered offense that you want a lot of exposure to.
Yeah, so let's actually go into tight end because Sean, I saw that Dalton Schultz isn't rostered in every league. Like there's still like I think 20% of leagues where he's not rostered, but it's a good point with Gallup back. Does that affect Schultz at all, or is he just locked in at this point and should be rostered everywhere?
I mean, yeah, he should be rostered everywhere. And yeah, Gallup probably will chip away at that, but Dalton Schultz has such a big role right now. His underlying usage is, mid-range tight end one. So even if Gallup does eat into that a little bit, at worst, Schultz is going to be a low-end tight end one. I just love having him in this high-powered offense. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be an issue at all.
Other tight ends that could potentially be options. Ricky Seals-Jones is still only about 50-50 rostered. He had 6 catches on 7 targets for 51 and a touchdown. CJ Uzomah, last 4 games, 13 catches, but 5 touchdowns and 2 90-yard games. And then Freiermuth, the rookie from Pittsburgh, 7 catches on 7 targets on a seat for 58 yards on a season high, 60% of snaps in week 5. Samantha, any of those guys stand out? People have to replace Darren Waller and Mark Andrews this week with the Ravens and Raiders on bye.
Yeah, 2 definitely high profile names that you have to replace. Jared Cook is the guy that's under 50% rostered. He's at 44% on Yahoo coming off of the week 7 bye. And I think he could flirt with that top 12 status. Uzomah, definitely a guy that turned heads. Jamar Chase was the star of the show on Sunday, but certainly Uzomah has been doing work over the last 4 weeks, and has been certainly an interesting waiver ad. He's 19% rostered, and then Freiermuth, another guy that I've been high on for sure. The offense isn't really sexy necessarily, but he's super athletic, has the body size and everything, and they're facing the Browns secondary, and I think he will see those increased targets. I think he saw 7 targets in the last game or something like that. So he will continue to see more targets with Juju out.
Yeah, it looks like the Jets are playing a lot of man coverage, and Uzomah's been their one of their go-to guys against man coverage this year. Interestingly enough, you see it, like he's downfield singled up, and he beats these linebackers and safeties. So I would expect him to stay hot against the Jets. But Sean, who do you like out of those guys? Cook, Seals-Jones, Uzomah, Freiermuth.
Obviously, our boy Ricky Seals-Jones, I mean, he's going to be a low-end tight end one until Logan Thomas returns. So, he's getting that underlying usage we love in tight ends. He's on the field running routes. Whereas, so he's going to be more consistent. And Uzomah, I think he's going to be pretty inconsistent. You're going to need these touchdown games to happen. Otherwise, you could get a dud. And, a guy like Freiermuth, love his upside. But until Eric Ebron actually misses time, he's probably nothing more than just a deep bench stash. But yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones, if you're hurting at tight end this week and he's available, definitely add him.
Yeah, and I don't mind Freiermuth at least adding him or desperation start, because remember, Steelers are coming out of a bye. I always like to pay attention to rookies coming out of a bye. We saw it with the guy like Elijah Moore. They got him in the end zone, even though he continues to struggle in the pass game. But Freiermuth played a season high 60% of snaps before the bye. So this could be a situation where he's truly the featured guy now, because they get a chance to look at the film and oh wait, yeah, Eric Ebron, that's not working. So don't mind him. But that is going to do it for our week number 8 waiver wire episode on the Fantasy Flex podcast presented by Prize Picks. You can find Samantha on Twitter at Samantha NFL. You can find Sean on Twitter at _Oddsmaker, and you can find me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. Be sure to check out actionnetwork.com for our fantasy football rankings, projections, and content, and fantasylabs.com for our DFS content, tools, and models. Until next time, let's get this money.